The overhead press feels like what we all wish the bench press was. You're standing on your own 2 feet, so it's more analogous to the squat and deadlift. It's a monster upper body developer. It's a very meaningful test of strength, and it's extremely entertaining to watch. It's like all of the things you told yourself about your dad before he left for the gallon of milk and never came back. And now you're stuck with your boring old slog of a stepfather, the bench press.
Yeah, so if you're here for the video title and to be angry at me, but Alexander Bromley made this video titled as the overhead press worthwhile for size and strength, and I wanted to make a video response to it. There's going to be some agreements and there's going to be some dissension, so let's take these down one by one.
But Freaky D, what are your credentials?
Reason number 1, it grows you.
So we don't have to get into number 1 too much. I'm in complete agreement there with him. It will absolutely grow you. It is absolutely not the be-all, end-all, but it is great for growth, just generally speaking.
2, I love it. It is scalable and versatile. So
again, we're in agreement here as well with the numerous grips, bar positions. Even you can get into different bars, different sets, reps, intensities, volume, speed, etc., etc. Yeah, versatile AF. No cap, on God, for real, for real.
Clarity. Reason number 3, there are just tons of carryover to other activities.
Okay, now's the juicy part. Now's where we get to some points of contention. This is what you've all been waiting for. So as far as point number 3, and the overhead press having carryover to other activities, I agree. Being strong at overhead pressing is good sign of general strength. The part, I'm just gonna splice it in here.
Push an overhead press tends to say things about the lifter that a bench press just doesn't, and I've heard it repeated by strength coaches in the past. They'd rather have an athlete who can strict press 250 than bench press 400 if you had to choose between the 2.
So as somebody who's accomplished both of these feats, I don't disagree with the sentiments. However, if you show me 2 people and one person can bench 400 but has never done a strict overhead press, and one person can strict overhead press 250 but has never done a bench press, I'm betting my money that the guy with the 400-pound overhead press will be strict pressing 250 far before the guy who is strict pressing 250 will be benching 400. That may be a little biased. That may be from my personal experiences as well. My very first strict overhead press was 250 pounds, and I was benching low to mid 400s at the time, 420 to 430. I can't remember the exact number, but it was definitely just a hair over 4 plates. First time I ever did a strict OHP, and I did 250. So that part, kind of wishy-washy. Again, I agree with the sentiments. Like a strong, strict overhead presser, if we're going into some sort of field sports or something, if you can only have one or the other, the strong bencher or the strong strict presser, I would lean towards that strong strict presser. But I'm also going to say that strong bencher probably is more likely to have a strong strict press by virtue of having a strong bench than vice versa. Yeah, I don't, that's where I'm at.
Reason number 4, it makes your bench press go up. Now this
And then we get into number 4. 3 and 4 are kind of along the same lines. I think OHP is pretty useless for bench press, personally. I just, it's something after a base level of strength that's not needed. Kudos to Bromley. He said that as much in there for a bench press specialist. Make fun of me. He talked to Sam Sheethard, who's a great resource, and conceded that maybe for the most advanced bench specialist, it's not really necessary after a certain point, and I would agree there 100%. As far as his relationship between, he found the strong man with the big strict OHP that had a big bench press, and then he cited like Jeremy Hoenstra as having a big bench press, but only a 405 seated strict OHP. And I think this leans a lot to, I don't know Hoenstra's training. I don't know if he did do seated OHP a lot or not. If he did, then I am way out of bounds here. But I would imagine it's because the overhead variants aren't really necessary for bench press. And I've found little to no carryover from OHP to bench press. I've actually found the inverse to be true. As my bench press has gone up, my overhead stuff kind of follows. I've done 302 for a double strict on log. I'll put that in here. And this was like my 5th or 6th time ever touching a log. So I've not had a lot of practice with it. This was just virtue of being a 500-pound bench presser and being strong in the upper body. Greg Knuckles has also found that, there's not really that significant of a relationship between his OHP going up and his bench press going up. And I was compared to Greg Knuckles this one time on the internet, and I'm going to plaster that here because, when you put out informative shit and you're compared to Greg Knuckles with your informative shit, that's your shining moment. I peaked back then. I will never be better.
My take on the overhead press, military press, shoulder press, whatever you call it, for bench press. Does it have a good transfer? Is that a good accessory lift for the bench press? And so, in general, I do think that the overhead press is a good movement just in its own right in general. But I think for most people, it's not that good of an accessory lift for the bench press.
But yeah, and I think if this is one of those things, if you want to look for it, you're going to find it. If you want to look for guys who had a strong overhead press and then a strong bench press after, you'll probably find it, and vice versa. If you want to find guys like me who had a strong bench press and then a strong overhead pressing because of that, you'll find that too. And just generally speaking, even though I don't find much value in overhead pressing as it relates to bench press, if you were to give me two guys and I had to increase, they've never bench pressed, and I had to increase their bench as much as possible in a month, neither one of them have done bench press, but this guy has OHP'd 2 plates for a set of 5, and this guy has OHP'd 135 for a set of 5. I'm going to take the 2-plate OHP guy, of course. So there's some relationship. Strength is strength, right? Being strong is being strong. I think we can all agree on that. How much or how little we get from one or the other to translate to one or the other, it's going to come down to like biases, what we believe, our personal builds, like how we bench. I'm a pretty shoulder dominant bench presser, so there's probably good reason to think there why my bench press carried my OHP along with it. If you're not a shoulder dominant bench presser, perhaps you will not find as much carryover from one to the other, or vice versa. I'll stick my foot in the sand, and I think for most people, a big bench is going to translate more to a big OHP than vice versa. However, I'm not going to sit here and say that's the case for 100% of people. So yeah, let's move on.
And this is purely anecdotal, but it seems to be less problematic as far as injury rates than benching. Now,
so I've never been injured, doing OHP or bench press. And I'm, within my circle of friends, I don't know a lot of people that have been injured doing either. So I really don't have a good opinion on this. And he said this was anecdotal for him. So, you know, this is his experience. I don't have a lot to say here. Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't researched data on injury rates on this or anything. And again, anecdotally, I don't really, I guess I've seen a pec tear or two on bench, and I've not seen as much on OHP, but then I'm in a powerlifting circle more than strongman, so I don't see as many people using OHP. Yeah, so that's all I've got here.
Thing number 6, it's fucking fun to do. And this is probably the most important thing.
Yeah, it's fucking fun. Again, we are in total agreement here. I've not found it to be extremely useful for my applications in powerlifting, but it is extremely fun. It's something I like to do in my off season for fun. And, you know, having a 350-pound strict press, you know, doing 3 plates for a triple strict, you get to mog a lot of people. Mogging people is fun. The movement itself is fun. Even like behind the neck variants and things like that are fun. Push presses are fun, even though I suck at them. So yeah, big agreement here. Again, the only real points of contention are in relation to bench press and some of the carryover stuff. I don't 100% buy in to what he was saying, but otherwise, my clickbait title aside, overhead press is certainly a worthwhile movement. And unless you are an extremely dialed in powerlifter who is just trying to uber optimize your powerlifting training, there's no reason not to do it. For my powerlifting guys, it's not that overhead press is a bad movement. It's just that there are so many other movements that are better suited for helping your bench press that using that energy to overhead press is suboptimal, bro, and taking away from, you know, what you could be doing that is going to further your bench press. After, you know, a base level of strength and proficiency with overhead press, it is utterly useless for powerlifting. Peace.